Hey everyone, it's Louisa Munson from Feel Good Astrology with another Feel Good conversation with you to share. And I recorded this a little bit earlier with good friend Jeff Granville. As you may know, I've done quite a few sessions with him before. The last one we were talking about was creating from zero. And this show, From Belief to Knowing, working with quantum alchemy, I really think, the two of them work together. It's really funny. It's like they're a pair of bookends. Creating from zero was very much about a little bit about the introduction to quantum, the law of attraction, a little bit about Jeff's round table of books that he absolutely adores and why he adores them, and then a little bit about his upcoming podcast. And this one is like the other end of the book, the bookends, because we were sort of carrying on with the creating from zero theme, but this time we're going from belief to knowing, and how to awaken the quantum alchemist within us. And we were talking about how his podcast has actually gone so far. So, it was before podcast, after podcast. And yeah, this is a very lighthearted, very heart-opened, very centered conversation. At the end of it, we go into Jeff's amazing coherence breathing patterns. If you've enjoyed our previous ones, then you'll love this one for sure. I actually think it's our best conversation to date, but there's lots to choose from, and you can find all the titles below in the description field. Anyway, as you might know, when Jeff and I meet up, I just hit the record button straight away, because we end up getting into the main crux of the video before we've even started recording, before I've said, hey, let me welcome Jeff. So it's with that sentiment that we actually start the show. We actually just chatting, and the chat just went on and led into this beautiful unfolding. So please join me as we literally dive right into the conversation with Jeff Granville.
And, I'm truly in the midst of manifestation. I mean, getting the type of people to respond to McCoy's story has been a real challenge of shutting down that left brain ego of make a list, get it done. Because what I thought could happen in 6 months has taken 3.5 years. But when you look at the bigger picture, that's really, really fast for everything that's happened.
It's super fast, isn't it?
Yeah, it's super fast. But you get that in your head, like, okay, if I'm alpha male Scorpio and I make a list and I get shit done, and it should take about 6 months. But then, things go different directions, and people that come into your life end up bouncing and spinning off, and then someone new comes and takes that position, and it's better yet, Yeah. But it's just kind of amazing to watch the process from the inside. I've read, law of attraction and The Secret and all that stuff, and you think, wow, that really works for other people, but you don't realize that we're creating, it's like Carl Jung says, until we bring the subconscious conscious, it'll dictate our life, and we'll call it fate, right? I mean, we manifest whether we're aware of it or not.
Yeah, and isn't it more exciting when we're actually deliberately at cause, really deliberately doing it and playing with it and enjoying it? And then I think with the realization of that comes some responsibility for our thinking.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's one of those things where you can look back on your life and feel guilty for all the mistakes you've made. But like Ho'oponopono teaches us to get to zero, when you realize that you are responsible for everything that comes into your consciousness, not to lay blame, not to say fault, but responsible, then we can say, okay, well, then it's possible for me to create from that place, consciously. So it's all a matter of awareness. And, like I teach in my workshops, that we're all living systems, everything from a Planck wave to the universe, and everything scalular up through those fractals. Everything's a living system. And there's three components that are inseparable: mass, energy, and information. Because as Einstein taught us, there's no such thing as mass without energy, or energy without mass. The two are the same thing. There's no marbles on the inside of atoms. They're energy waves. And with that comes information, because even a Planck wave is a measurable energy that has information in it. So when we realize that everything is a living system, and one living system is reacting and playing off another living system, picking up energy or information, then we can really be responsible for what we do within our body. Because if we realize our living system is, stagnant or feeling low, or, whatever's going on with our body and our environment, which dictates our thought patterns, which creates our new reality, right? So once we get to that point where, okay, when we expand our awareness, we expand our consciousness. And when we read, when we talk to each other, when we share information and things click, and we add, when we raise our awareness, that changes the information, which then inherently changes the energy and mass of your body.
Yeah.
And I just love that, because it's not something that's an opinion or a belief or up for debate. I mean, that's a law of the universe. That's the law of the universe. And we talked about Dr. Joe Delaney, and what a wonderful man he is to work with.
He's amazing.
He's amazing. And we really connected on the point that, like Bruce Lipton's book and Teachings of Biology of Belief, he talks a lot about who I'm interviewing on the 21st, by the way, on my podcast. He talks a lot about how your life and your the environment you're born in and the things you're exposed to set up your beliefs, and your beliefs create your reality, right?
Yeah.
So when Dr. Joe Delaney and I were talking, he was like, I want to work on a project called Biology Beyond Your Beliefs, like how to go from there. And I said, well, that's really crazy, because what's coming to me is the physiology of knowing. So there's a really big difference between the biology we create from our belief systems, because those are subconscious.
The physiology of knowing sounds like something that is coming towards us.
Yeah.
It's like a constant state, but also one that it feels like it's growing, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And the knowing part is when we do something, or we're made aware of something, and we take it in consciously, intentionally, with our conscious mind now. It's like when you read something or research something, or you try something. And again, I use my example of raising my plank time little by little, because I didn't go to failure. I went to 6 minutes, and then I knew I could do 6 minutes. So the next day I said, well, I'm just going to do 6 minutes again. And then I easily got there and said, well, why don't I just do 15 more seconds? And each day I knew that I could get to that point. And it just built and built and built. So,
and that's something you spoke about in a previous recording. So I'm sure you mentioned that in Creating from Zero and in the sessions before, because you've been doing your plank for months now, haven't you?
Yeah. I plateaued though. I plateaued intentionally, and I'm at 20 minutes. I do a 20-minute plank 3 times a week.
No way.
And it's bizarre. I mean, I'm still blown away that I'm able to do that. And I've talked to, there's a couple people that are in my group. We've added some more people in our mindful presence group, and one of them is really into fitness. And he's like, Jeff, do you realize what a tiny percent of people on the face of the earth can do a 20-minute plank? He said, that's just beyond human. That is and it's not just mastering the physiology, it's mastering the mind, because the left brain constantly wants you to quit. It constantly finds reasons to quit. And when I do my coherence breathing, it eases that left brain. It integrates my right and left brains into physiology of divinity. And then I can sit there and just be with my heartbeat and be with my breath. And the songs, I play songs through my plank and time it. And I count, I do 4 songs, and then I turn on my clock so I can see my stopwatch running. And I'm always somewhere like 15 or 16 minutes. And then I just have 3 or 4 minutes to finish to get to 20. And someday I'll probably see how high I can go just to see.
Yeah.
But for now, 20 minutes is a long time to dedicate
Yeah.
to a plank. And I have other exercises and other things to do with my life. So I
Of
don't want
course.
to plank for 30 minutes every day, but it's an
Yeah.
amazing thing to be able to do it. But to me, that's the definition of knowing. And it creates a physiology of knowing, because when you open up your consciousness to new things and they ring true and resonate with your heart and soul, then it's added to the knowing. It's no longer a belief system.
Yeah.
It's no longer the biology that happens to be created because of a previous subconscious belief that keeps coming up and creating the blood chemistry that triggers the thoughts that keeps us stuck. So being able to get to a mindset and heart coherence and physiology of knowing, that's what quantum alchemy is. That is the absolute definition of knowing what we're capable of, being really true to what our heart and soul's desires are, and our connection to quantum and to the universe and the design of the divine in the cosmos, right? It's all up there, and we're just the actors on stage playing it out. So
Aren't we just?
yeah.
If I may, I'd like to take us back to a little bit of our sort of history. And explore a couple of things that are coming into my consciousness right now, because
Great.
if they're coming into mine, the chances are they're coming into yours,
Yeah.
and possibly everyone else that finds us in this conversation. And also a little bit about synchronicity, because I've had another call today, and the person I was speaking to was also wearing a green polar neck jumper. And I noticed
Really?
today is the day where everyone I speak to is wearing green with a turtleneck or a polar neck. And
Wow. Yeah.
that's a bit of a coincidence.
That's a
Of all
bit.
and styles and whatnot.
And
But
it wasn't from a memo. I didn't get the memo to wear this. It just
yeah,
happened, right? It's the download.
exactly. There's something going on right now. I'm really sensing a big heart opening, and I'm noticing in my work at the moment that there is a kind of quantum alchemy going on. Like the quantum in my work comes in when I kind of let go. I see a chart or whatever it is that I'm focusing on for the
Right.
person. And in that moment that I'm focusing on that person and letting go, all of a sudden something kind of comes in and comes through me as, as a message. And what I'm noticing right now is I'm getting feelings in my body, temperatures, all sorts of different things. And I'm referring to them in the reading and almost leading in a healing session. It's like this, like quantum healing is coming through me for the people I'm working with at the moment. So what is the quantum, I guess? And how did we get there? Like in our conversations, we started off talking about your experiences as a father, and with the experience that your son has been going through, and how you've learned from that. We've been talking about your breathing and the very specific types of breathing that you do and you teach others to do in order that they're able to access a new part of themselves. And you've spoken about that already in terms of how you're able to do this incredible plank feat. I mean, that's rather amazing, but you see it in the clients that you work with, that amazing things become possible when we are retraining our physiology and also linking that into our mind.
Right.
So what are you noticing right now in the quantum? Like, what would you say is your definition of the quantum?
Well, my definition of the quantum is where, if you look at, regardless of your language, whether you call it God, the universe, the pool of creation, whatever, like in David Hawking's book, Power versus Force, he's like a world-renowned leader in the topic of consciousness.
Yeah,
And
frequency, right?
yeah. And well, he does the consciousness chart where
Yeah.
it shows, you know, like
It's love 600.
what's
If
that?
I'm not, is love 600 or 660?
At the top is 1000. It goes from 0 to 1000, and the break point but of awakening is like 200.
Mm.
You know, and above 200 is all positive, and below 200 is all downward and negative. And what he states is that there is no question that a human can ask where the answer doesn't already exist in the quantum.
Oh, I love that.
I love it. I
Oh
just
my
absolutely
gosh.
love it. So by the time a human can experience something in our world that
Yeah.
raises a question, the answer is already there. No question can be asked where an answer doesn't already exist in the quantum. So that
Yeah.
means that every single problem that
Has a
we
solution.
experience on earth already has a quantum solution from God, from divinity to download. So that is where, like, when we talk about right brain being creation and right brain being divinity, and we're left brain triggered all the time, so we're not creating, we're reacting.
Mm.
So when we biohack our way to zero and we open up the energy flow and connection to our right brain, we're in connection to divinity, which
Mm.
is
Can I
where
can I
yeah, please.
can I just stop you? You said when we biohack to zero, just for anyone that hasn't watched a previous show between us, what's your definition of biohacking to zero?
Yeah, well, biohacking to zero means that, like, when we're triggered
Mm.
and we are in left brain looping thoughts of angst, worry, anxiety, we are not at zero. We are in a lot of energy is going into our left brain and everything about how we're separate from everybody. So biohacking to zero means that we are consciously, with intent for our own well-being, controlling our breath, and which entrains our heart
Mm-hmm.
and puts it in homeostasis, which calms our system, which lowers our left brain chatter and opens up the right brain of divinity.
Mm.
And it's like the tipping of the scale. It like Joe Bolte Taylor says, our brain uses 20 watts of energy, like a dim light bulb in a refrigerator. And when we're triggered in left brain, it's using like 18 to 20 watts of power in our left brain hyperactivity action. And the right brain of divinity and connection and clarity and downloads has no power. So when we biohack to zero, we reduce the amount of power being consumed by the left brain, which frees it up for the right brain to be creative and be connective and feel love and enjoyment of the moment, and then open to divinity. Because every single poem, song, math equation, invention, everything was downloaded in that moment of need when you're at zero in the moment. And every inventor, every songwriter, I mean, you think about the interviews with how many songwriters said they were in a bar and they grabbed a napkin and started writing down lyrics that were just coming, and they say, I don't know where that came from.
Yeah.
No, and in Hawking's book, he also says no true genius ever takes credit for their
Mm.
inventions.
Yeah, yeah. It just
Everybody,
comes through them.
everybody acknowledges that it just comes to them. It
Mm.
just showed up. Like Tesla said that he had 680 some inventions, patents, and every single one of them came to him as visions,
Mm.
as detailed drawings, not numbers, not, letters. It all comes in images, which is right brain. Right brain is all about images and pictures and feelings and emotions and energy, and that's all right brain. So, biohacking to that zero point is cutting down the chatter and power consumption of the left brain
Yeah. I
and
love that
filling it up.
analogy. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic sort of image as well to hold. And what I notice as well is when you're talking about the right side of the brain, sort of like powering up, when you reduce the chatter and you're able to like allow that part to do its thing, because that is what it does. It just does its thing, doesn't it?
Yes.
It's almost like out of your head pops this great big solar panel, because it's very regenerative, isn't it? It's not like highly consumptive. Stuff comes to it, like the energy that you might need, everything that you need in that process is there for you.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
my thinking.
Absolutely. And that's a
Like free
really
energy.
it is, Louisa, and it's something that's a really important point that you just brought up, because it's not like we're plugged into a power generation source, electrically, physically, 3D, and if we use too much power, we have to pay the bill, or
There is no bill.
replenish a battery. No, this is, it's like Nassim Haramein is on the path through quantum physics of free energy, that there's more energy in a cubic centimeter of space than all of the oil fields on the world. And tapping the energy of the Planck wave field is unlimited. I mean, space is continually growing. All the solar, everything's, the galaxies are all spreading apart. There's a constant flow of energy. So, we might say, like, when we talk about the 20 watts of power that the brain consumes, well, if we're depressed, if we're not eating right, if we're not exercising, if we're not getting outside, we might not have 20 watts available to our brain.
I suspect you're right about pretty much everyone on the planet right now.
Yeah.
Especially after, the festive period that's been going on, and everyone's been overindulging and whatnot and getting tired out.
Yeah. The bulbs are a bit dim, and they're not having connected thoughts.
Yeah. I actually need to get a new bulb.
Yeah, it's amazing. But like you said, it's like the big solar panel, the big solar array, because when you do create the physiology of divinity, when you're at zero and you get the right brain open and connected to your heart, it generates energy. I mean, you are generating energy, and you're pulling from an unlimited supply.
I've just remembered something that actually matches what you're saying there, and it's from one of our Higher Self Expo colleagues, Christiana Eltrean, the lady who is a breatharian. She did say that when people channel a lot, they often end up putting on weight, which is why a lot of psychics and mediums and stuff tend to be, like heavily grounded and fortified. And I always it was because we're grounding energy, or we might be we might need a little bit of sort of like extra boundaries. How when people get hurt, they often put on weight as a boundary. She was actually saying when you're connected to the divine a lot, it gives so much energy, and if you carry on eating at the same rate as you normally would, you end up you're just not using all that energy that comes into you. You can't possibly do it. And what you just shared with me just reminded me of that.
Yeah. And if you think about what we started out with, talking about the living system, when a medium channels, like someone like yourself, where you're opening to new information, okay, it has to change your mass and your energy. It has to. The three are inseparable. You can't change one without changing the whole living system. So, Bruce Lipton talked about this in Sedona. I went to Sedona since we last talked and had a 2-day seminar with Bruce Lipton.
Tell me about it. What did you learn?
I mean,
it's not taking us too far off, is it? I guess it's enhanced.
Oh, no. It's all tied together. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So tell me about Sedona.
Sedona was amazing. It was my first time there. Kind of a whirlwind. I came in on a Sunday night for a Monday, Tuesday event, and then left early Wednesday morning. So I had zero time to explore nature. I went for a couple morning walks, but that was it. But Sedona itself was gorgeous. The event was amazing. It was in person, 200 people in a room. Maybe a few people wore masks, but mainly not. And Bruce Lipton talked about masks and COVID and vaccines. He talked about Um, he talked about breatharians.
Mm,
He talked about how we need very little food. And just like you said, the more we are open and connected and getting energy from source, the
mm,
less energy we need to consume in our body.
mm,
So people who are breatharians are vibrating at such a high level, and they're so connected to their heart and soul and divinity that they're
mm.
powered up from that and don't
Yeah.
need the food. So that
Mm.
plays right into what you were talking about.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. And what was your biggest takeaway from today then?
Oh, well, I got to say, my biggest takeaway was probably my hugs and kisses from Margaret, Bruce's wife. I mean,
Oh,
she is so divine. She is divinity walking. She is so amazing, and she is the reason that Bruce and I made a connection in the first place. And
I remember you mentioning
yeah,
that she got involved and she was trying to get you two together
yeah, yeah.
without a delay.
Yeah, she did. And it worked out great. And I got some private time with Bruce, and I got
Wow.
to talk with Elon Cohen, who produces all the events for, Bruce and Joe Dispenza and Greg Braden and
Mm.
Cryon and Lynn
Yeah.
McTaggart and all the, I mean, he produces all of them. So my
Wow.
goal was to get to him specifically, and plant the seed for the roundtable event, which they loved. So
I suspect that is
yeah.
already seeding itself, right?
Yeah, I think the seed is planted. It's been, we came out of that and went straight into the holidays and the New Year's. So I'm giving everybody space to kind of get their feet on the ground after the new year and reconnect. But there's, the affirmations I'm getting from all directions. Like one of my mentors that came to me through you and Carl was Lonnie
Oh,
McLaughlin.
Lonnie, I was going to ask because
Yeah.
yeah, Lonnie mentioned to me that he'd had conversations with you, and I had no idea you two were in contact. I was like, "Ooh,
Oh
that's
yeah.
interesting."
Oh
So
yeah.
what's going on there?
Well, that was amazing. A few months ago when he reached out to me because of watching our show, right?
Wow.
He saw the show with you, me, and Carl.
Mm,
And from that, he reached out and kind of explained who he was and what
mhm.
he does. I mean, he's like the highest level landmark trainer. He
Yeah.
went into administration and designed all the training programs. And I mean, and he went through his own crisis to creation
Yeah.
from, having 6 weeks to live from cancer. And now he's 6 years past, So he connected with me, said, "Hey, this is who I am. We need to talk." And he just came right out and said, "I love you. I'm your biggest fan. I
Yeah.
will be your free mentor and advisor the rest of my days. And
Wow.
and he's like affirming from the business side, from the, he's also very spiritual. He's also very grounded and open. Um, but he's like confirming the work you're doing is already done in the
Mm.
Akashic future. It is done. You have yet just stay on your path and don't get sidetracked by the 3D stuff. He literally told me, and this is one of the biggest advice he gave me, because what I do requires, I mean, what we all do requires income. We have to live
Yeah.
and we have to build. We have projects we want to do. We want a wellness center. There's big money that has to come. But he says, "Jeff, let me tell you something. You're the champion of it. Your job is to do the work and tell the story. And when you're done, do the work and tell the story, and then do the work and tell the story."
That was great.
The minute you start talking about money, your energy shifts. There's other people in the world. This is akashically done. You just stick to your work and telling the story, and it's all going to unfold. And I'm going to make sure it happens, that type of thing. So it's just like a mirror and a muse. It's like, here's a reflection of what I see from my position as he's gone through. I mean, he's trained like 89,000 humans,
Yeah,
right?
he is supreme.
Supreme.
He
So
is
to
really
get,
an incredible character.
yeah, so to have people like Lonnie and
Mm,
Bruce Cryer from HeartMath and Bruce
yeah.
Lipton and Thomas Verney and Jill Bolte Taylor, view me, feel me, and reflect it back to me from their point of view gives me that, okay, I'm a father and a high school graduate, but I kind of got it going on. We're talking at the same level, and it's given me that inspiration. That's the muse part of it, where they hold the space for me. They acknowledge, okay, this is where you are. This is where I see you're going, and that sort of thing. And then, another interview I have coming up in February, right before you, I believe, is Elka Stiller. And she is amazing. She is James McCartney's widow, who wrote From Crisis to Creation, which is on my roundtable.
Yes,
And
it is.
she holds space in the center for consciousness because she channels books. She wrote Downloading a Friendly Universe. And there's a number of things in there about being the eye of the storm. And, a lot of the things I use about the spiral of ascension and being the eye of the storm all came from that book, and they're all downloads. And I finally got to meet her. James died about 1.5 years ago. And my daughter, Heidi, my oldest daughter, Heidi, is friends with her. She's kind of a mentor. So she said, well, the time will be right, but it's not now. So I've waited. And then I finally got to meet her. And we talked about what she does and James and the book and what it's meant to me and all that. We kind of got caught up. And then she says, so tell me about McCoy. And so I sat across the counter from her, and I'm talking about McCoy, and she starts backing up a little bit. She starts backing up and holding. She's like, I have to stop you because when you talk about McCoy, your energy, your aura, she's a seer. She goes, Jeff, do you know what a seer is? And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, you're a feeler. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a feeler. And she says, well, I'm a seer and a feeler. And let me tell you something. You have the most powerful aura I've ever seen. You have, I can see people's auras like 3 feet from their body. And she stood up and she walked around me with her hands out. And she's like saying, okay. And she's like 6 to 8 feet away. She's saying, this is the border of your aura. And there's 2 pyramids, one inverted on the other. One, you're a teacher. The other, you're a healer. And it is so powerful. The work is already done. It's already done in the Akash. You just have to stay on course and stay centered and focused, and don't let the human windings of money and things. And so it was the same message.
Same message from Lonnie and Elka.
Yeah. Wow. And they don't know each other. They don't practice the same things at all. They're almost like opposite ends of the spectrum between business and creation and what she does. So I'm getting it from different points of view, and it's very reassuring. It's very affirming. Because it's not easy. It's very enjoyable. I love what I do, but it's sometimes for our human side a torture of patience. It's like, practicing patience is wonderful, but after a while it's like, okay, enough. I've got the lesson. Let's move on. But the thing that we need to realize is that the bodies that are in motion are big. It's like a big tanker. You move the rudder and it takes a long time to turn, right? So everything in the universe is on a course. And when you tap into that download of what the need is for humanity, big things need to move. Big things need to shift. And I always say that in the quiet moments when nothing appears to be happening is when the universe is conspiring for your success. So I've had to really, really believe in that, really know that. And here's a good point between believing and knowing. In the beginning, I believed that, but then after it paid out in dividends of like, nothing seemed to happen. And people that were supposed to show up didn't show up, and they spun off. And then it's like, okay, you're in the void. And that's where most people quit. That's where most people say, okay, nothing's happening. I've tried everything and there's nothing I can physically do. Well, that's where the power of prayer or meditation or biohacking to zero, whatever you want to call it, getting in tune back to the source, back to the need, and focusing on the need of the situation and just being calm enough with the chatter of the doubts to sit in that vortex and be part of the vortex. Because, like I've always said, being exposed to the need at the hospital, the pediatric situation, is what gave me the downloads that I got to help save my son. And by, like, if we were upset at the doctors or angry at God, we wouldn't be open to those downloads. So then once you see, okay, go to center, be part of the vortex, just sit in it, and then more people come in your life. And it's like the or better thing. It's like, I had this idea, but the universe said that or better, right? So just be patient. And people that I thought were for sure part of the group have spun off. And then new people show up, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's or better. That is definitely, and that's where we're at.
You've mentioned loads of things that I'd like to touch on, as ever. I'm always like, it's always like a dance, isn't it? You race off, and I'm kind of just wanting to check a couple of things out. So much detail, and it's amazing. So I'm this show then, From Belief to Knowing, is probably a really good title for it. From Belief to Knowing, the Quantum Alchemy,
Right.
The story of quantum alchemy. So like, we've been in touch for almost a year now, in a couple of time. And if we think about the journey that you've been on in this last year, to me, it seems to have gone like this, almost like it's growing exponentially. So it's getting faster and faster and growing higher and higher. And so you've obviously got yourself into the right mindset for that to happen. And you've got two coaches out of nowhere coming at you with the same message from a completely different mindset. What I'd like to do is understand, if we could break down how you did that. I mean, obviously, you and I have both read and watched lots of things about, like, the law of attraction and all sorts of stuff about how we start working with the laws of the universe, the energy, whatever you want to call it, to make things manifest. But what I'd really like to do is kind of get it in your words, like the steps or the key components of it, because you've done something rather phenomenal in this last year. And like you say, when it does come together, what I observed in it, or heard when you were talking, is you needed faith to know that even when people dropped out, there was a better a better thing coming. And that is what happens, because as your energy is shifting, there will be people that aren't at the right frequency for your experience, for your current experience, and then the new ones that are at that space. Or sometimes people drop out or go to the side for a short while they're working on their energy levels, and then you kind of reconvene again. So there's all sorts of different options going on. What would you say your key steps have been in this last 10 months that I've known you for?
It is amazing. And I really want to appreciate that witnessing that you have added to that, because that's a key component to quantum alchemy. Is that nothing happens in the universe without a witness.
I've definitely been witnessing it.
What's that?
I've definitely been witnessing it.
Yes, you have been witnessing, and your heart and soul has been adding to it. I mean, that's the key. Is like, one of the things that came to me very early in McCoy's journey, when he had to have the unsedated lumbar puncture and all those first things. And I think I posted it on Facebook, that it's amazing how simple your choices are when all your options have been taken away. Right. So I didn't really have the option to quit. Being the spokesperson and the conduit for this download and what happened to McCoy is something that I was told that I needed to do. And any time that I felt stuck or stopped or frustrated, I would just drop back into my heart through my breath and focus on the need And I've had my son right there the whole time, and he was in dire straits for most of the time. So I didn't have the luxury of taking my eye off the ball. I had to be there. And I call it like God being in God's pocket, right? Because people ask me, did you ever have time to stop and pray? And I said, I never had time to stop. I had to stay in that moment all the time. So what worked for me, and many, many times through that, I would feel stuck and there's nothing I can do to help him. There's nothing I can do to get my opinion across or get the doctors to try it, and felt stuck. And my human side would just get frustrated and angry. But then, okay, where's that going? That's not adding anything. What do I know? What do I believe? And very early on, it was Bruce Lipton. Your perception of reality is more deterministic than reality itself. Okay, so you got to let that go.
Say that again.
Your perception of reality is more deterministic than reality itself.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Because we live in the perceptions
Absolutely.
going on in our head. I mean, that's so true about what's happened in the last couple of years.
Absolutely.
Everyone's living in the perception rather than the actual reality.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they're creating through their belief system. Because like previous interview with Stephen Hall, the 7 Twos of Healing, he teaches that consciousness creates constantly, and it does it through your belief system.
Yeah.
So when you really let that hit home, it's not that you believe it, it's now that you know it. And once you've seen it, that's the difference between belief and knowing, is that you've experienced the positive side of contagion, to where, okay, wait a minute, if I just go back to center, I go to my breath, go to my heart, I let the left brain frustration and angst and people letting me down and the doctors make me angry, you let that go, just let that go. Those loops will stop playing.
Yeah.
And you go back to that 0 point and go to your breath and become coherent. And it naturally brings you up to date, because like Michael Singer says in The Untethered Soul, when you are meditating, praying, the seat of witness is right in your center, in your core. Your consciousness is centered. You are literally the center of your own universe, because infinity goes in all directions, right? From every body. So when you are in left brain angst over, you're angry at that person, the center of your universe is now that person. You've given your center to that object or that thing that your left brain is angry about or in angst about. So all the energy, wherever your attention goes, your energy flows.
Yes, it does.
So if you give your attention to something you're angry about, all your energy goes to that object instead of your center and your heart and your soul connection to divinity for that download. So to me, it is very simple. The steps are absolutely simple. Know it to be true. Go to your heart and core through your breath and just be there. You have to, I mean, Eckhart Tolle says all the angst and anxiety of humanity is being not in the present moment, not accepting what truly is. And it's through my circle of books, every single person says that, but in a different way. And that's where the truth comes in, the consciousness of knowing, the physiology of knowing, is that, wait, the commonality of everything that everybody's teaching is that very point. When you know it and you accept it as absolute infinite truth, then it's easy to get back to that. It's easy to get back to that. Okay, if I'm feeling frustration, that's not the essence of my soul. That's not the journey my soul is on.
Yeah.
So you biohack to 0. It empties that cup, like Ho'oponopono says. Your cup is full of human windings. It has no room for divinity, no room for the download of what's best to do. So when you use their mantra of I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, you empty that cup and you open to divinity. And then things start happening and moving again in the right direction, because your human angst lends your consciousness and your energy to something else. And all the energy of the cosmos is going to go to that instead of to you. So to me, it was always the vortex is children's hospital. You know, and it's like, if you try right now to feel and listen, a couple miles away from me is Children's Hospital. They have 500 beds with kids in them, and every kid has at least one parent, and family and extended. I mean, there's like hundreds of people for every person, every child in a bed. And if you could audibly hear them crying or screaming or their angst, their tummy ground, whatever, if you could hear that, you couldn't survive it.
No.
And survive it. So, but the energy of that is going up to divinity. It's creating a vortex, right? And the download back to Hawking's, no human problem can exist where an answer doesn't already exist in the quantum. So when you think of that, I mean, really feel that in your heart. I don't have to be at the hospital to be in that vortex. All I have to do is really put my consciousness in my heart and in my soul and feel that vortex, be part of it. I can be part of that vortex from anywhere in the world. All I have to do is think about it intentionally and feel it. And then I'm in that vortex. And then when you focus on the need, the answer comes. Necessity is the mother of invention, right?
Yes.
When there's a need, multiple downloads come, simultaneous invention is proven to be true. So to me, that is the knowing. That is the knowing that if I set myself aside for just a second, myself, my left brain aside, and I just go to my core and I think of the need, I'm centered. I'm there. I'm in the vortex. I'm a quantum alchemist because my heart's in it, you know, and like Joe Dispenza teaches us and heart math teaches us, your brain is electric. Okay. Your heart is electromagnetic. And it creates like a battery has a toroidal field. The earth has a toroidal field, deposit magnet.
We have one.
We are, right? Every living system has a toroidal field that generates an energy flow. All right. So when we our toroidal field of our heart is 5,000 times stronger than the electro field of our head, of our brain, of our thoughts. So your thoughts are like tuning the dial, and your heart is the amplifier. So when your heart is in it, truly in it, and your soul's calling is in alignment with your mission, your step, your stride, you know, walking your walk, you're really in your zone, then that attracts. That's the secret of the law of attraction, right? It's like they both go together because you're getting to that point where you're on the same frequency of what you want and you're drawing it to yourself, right? So that's where all the answers come. That's where all the downloads are electromagnetically drawn. Like, you know, the Kansas song you were playing, say it's on the radio, you know, that radio signal is going past you. All you have to do is tune your dial, you know. So that's the frequency of every answer we could possibly ask is in there. We just have to tune into it. And that's how we do it.
Wow. That was an incredible answer. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It just came out.
Yeah, because you were in the zone. I loved that your answer doubled back. Round two, there is no question where the answer doesn't exist already. Because I mean, that is going back into the toroidal system. You know, it's always going round. I love that. Okay, so I've been noticing in the last few days this feeling of absolute loving kindness erupting, and I've been noticing I've barely like my eyes are always feeling slightly sticky at the moment, and I don't have conjunctivitis. They're like continuously not sticky, really kind of wet. I'm at like I'm tearing up all the time at the moment. I just can't seem to. It's connected to this massive heart opening that I'm feeling, and in fact, and it's not a surprise. You know, I did a recording with Tanya, or also known as TC Aila, and somebody called Serena Faith Masterson, who you might also want to interview at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And ever since, I've been quite affected by that conversation, in a great way. But I just feel like my heart is bursting with so much gratitude. You know, if I focus on a problem, all I feel is actually just the gratitude of it at the moment, and I just feel like weeping continuously. And I always think whatever's going on for me is made possible because other people must be doing it around the world. Because you know, you were talking about having a big aura. I don't know if I've got a big aura, but when you were describing tuning into the vortex of the children's hospital, I could feel it the moment you were telling me to tune into it. You know, so I feel like whatever's going on in the world is happening in my body. So I'm really quite excited right now because I'm feeling this massive heart opening. What are your perceptions of what's going on right now, given that
Wow.
you are in this creating from zero space a lot of the time? What's your
Right.
take on it?
Well, I got to tell you, first of all, I just had to bite my tongue from interrupting you on that because I'm feeling the same exact way,
Mm,
and many other people are.
mm.
And I think we're coming out of that COVID cocoon,
Oh, yeah.
and the imaginal cells have the blueprint for flight, and the butterfly feels heart connected to the universe, right? So on this last weekend, we just had a gathering, an energetic gathering, only 4 people,
Mhm.
and Sunday night when I was leaving and we're doing a group hug, my eyes just filled with tears. And it wasn't like I had a thought and then it made me sad or it made me
Oh, yeah.
happy. And I just out of my mouth said, my heart is so full, it's leaking out of my eyes.
Wow.
And that's exactly what you just described.
Yeah, yeah.
It just was uncontrollable. And it wasn't sad. It wasn't sorrow. It wasn't like a human joy
No.
or something to be happy about or a funny joke or whatever. It was just a welling, an uplift, a wellspring of emotion and
Mm,
expansion,
mm.
expansion. And I think that is the key part, because like heart math shows that when we're heart sick or angst or betrayed, the toroidal field of our heart shrinks.
Yeah.
It's measurable
Mm.
with a device, right? And when we are in love and gratitude and acceptance of what is, and we're not combating what is, then our toroidal field expands and we can measure it up to 8 feet away from our body. We know it's infinite. It goes on like a radio wave forever, but we can only measure it. It's
Yeah.
not the heart that can't be measured. It's the device that can't measure it fine enough, right? So um, that expansion is what creates that wellspring of emotion and the heart opening. And what it is it's like Jill Bolte Taylor's, who is this Friday live, okay, on my podcast. She had the experience where her left brain had a bleed and it shut down, and her right brain just completely
Mm.
expanded.
Yeah,
Okay,
she had no concept. I remember watching her TED Talk all these years ago and her saying how she wanted to call for help, but she couldn't work out where the telephone started and ended. All of a
right,
sudden, everything kind of bled into each other because she was seeing everything from a perspective that she'd never conceived or perceived before. Like
right,
all of her rational mind was kind of shut down, and wowzers.
right. And
Yeah.
so in her experience and in her book, Whole Brain Living, which is paradigm shifting for academia and every human on earth. I mean, I'm really, really excited for it and what the outcome is going to be for all of us. But, if you think about the expansion that she experienced during her left brain bleed, where the left brain could no longer consume any wattage of the 20 watts, the right brain immediately got all the 20 watts. And she looked down and said, how am I ever going to fit in that tiny body? She's having an out-of-body experience. And in that mode, there's no gap between you and me. There's no distance. Divinity connects it all.
Yeah.
Right? So the left brain like parts the water of divinity, and it makes it look like, okay, those people are separate than me, and they've got heart energy, and they're connected to divinity, right? And I'm connected to divinity from here. And even when I did a video chat with Joe Bolte Taylor, I said sometimes with kids, I'll do 2 eyes and a mouth with a pen. I'll take a pen and put 2 little dots for eyes and a mouth on this finger, and 2 little dots with eyes and a mouth on this finger. And I'll say, this is us talking, and we look and feel separate, right? But divinity connects us all. We are God. We are divinity, right? There's no gap between these two. They're connected from the back, like the puppeteer, like, the ventriloquist animates the puppet. Divinity animates us into seemingly separate living systems.
Yeah.
But we're all one living system. There is no gap in divinity anywhere in the world. It's like the Planck wave field of the vacuum of space. Plancks are inside of every atom.
So you and I are just little dots and a mouth on fingers coming from different parts of the world. Me in Portugal and you in Seattle.
Seemingly separate.
With like God with his hands up our backsides, playing us like little finger puppets.
Yep.
Isn't that incredible?
It's exactly what's happening. And yeah. And it's, you look at all of the teachings, all the ancient teachings. I mean, I love Alan Watts. I love to hear his voice. I love the journeys he's been through to get to the place where he was, to be able to share it with the rest of the world. And, he's even, I listen to reggae music because I love the sound and the message and the energy in which it was created. And I just love it. It's easy. Music I used to listen to now agitates me, which is a whole nother topic. Yeah. But I'm a classic rock guy, like Kansas and Boston, like you were listening to Led Zeppelin.
Did I agitate you before we started?
Of concerts, and I listened to the same music for 40 years, and I'm a diehard classic rock guy. Well, after McCoy's incident, or his continued journey, that music agitates me now. I don't listen to it anymore. And I love it. I have no problem with it. But there's something about the energy of it that just doesn't resonate with me anymore. But for some reason, the reggae music really resonates with me, and it calms me, and I love the message and the energy, and it matches my frequency, I guess. And so anyway, but Alan Watts has a verbal narrative that they've used in the front of one of the songs. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. This music I listen to, I can't remember the artist. It's not, might be Rebellion. But anyway, it might be Stick Figures. But anyway, the song starts out with some music, and then Alan Watts talking about the reality of God, where people think that God and the universe and this bright light within us and everything is so fantastic. But he's like, the reality is even more mind-blowing, that even a paper cup is made with the same energy of divinity. I mean, the energy behind every atom in that cup is divinity. I mean, so when you realize that even a paper cup is God, is the same essence of God. I mean, it's absolutely, it's like, yep, that fits, that resonates, that's reality.
I mean, that cup is just doing its thing.
Yeah.
It's just doing its thing. Like, I mean, we're all, like you say, we're all just puppets. We're all showing up with a different purpose
Yeah.
to do things. I love that.
Yeah.
Wow, we've kind of just allowed our hearts to take us where we wanted in this conversation, which is why I like working with you.
I love it, Louisa. I absolutely, I just love you. I
love you.
do. I mean, I've had so many people tell me that the energy they feel when we're working together is so
Mm.
matched and married and in unison. And I'm honored. I'm
Oh,
honored to
I'm
be
right back
a
at you. No,
reflection.
seriously,
Right
I,
on.
I love it. I love it. Tell me, give me an update about your wonderful podcast
Oh,
before we go, because I've listened to I haven't managed to listen to a full one yet, but I've listened to Dr. Joe. I loved him. I thought he was great, and I've listened to you talking with our good friend Jenny.
oh, love
And they're
Jenny.
great. And it's not because I don't want to listen to them in full. It's we've had Christmas, and I've got, as you know, I've got the
Oh,
3
yeah.
small ones. We've had birthdays and all sorts. So I will be coming back to those. But tell me, how is your podcast going? Because they were fantastic. The bits I listened to were amazing. I loved it.
Thank you.
Really, really loved it. So how are you enjoying having your own show? And tell me about some of the guests coming up. You've obviously got Jill Bolte coming up on this week. And you mentioned that you've got a big interview on the 21st of January. What's that?
That's
Who's
Bruce
that?
Lipton.
Well, that's
That's
good.
Bruce Lipton. Yeah, I've got I'm booked through the end of February.
Yeah.
Every week, and the interviews that have led up to where I'm at. I mean, it's one of those things again where I've had to set my human aside just to like not have sweaty hands and heart beating and and you've got this left brain agenda of everything you're going to ask, and so I've kind of I know the topics, I know the questions, I know where how I want to tie things together. So I kind of leave it to flow like you do. You've been a great example of that. And
Can I just say something?
yeah.
Before I started, I had a blank sheet. And like whenever you and I talk, I always end up like
Oh my
writing
gosh.
loads of notes. So I sit there. So if you ever see me kind of look intense, it's because I'm just writing like, oh, wow, I like that. I might like mention that again in a moment or so. But
Right.
it is a blank sheet at the start, and it fills itself with our energy.
Wow.
Sorry, I interrupted.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I will mirror that. You'll be my muse on that, because
Don't do that,
that's
because that might not be your style. That works for me. That might not work for you. I don't want you
well,
to like
I've
do that.
actually that's kind of what I was alluding to, is when I started, I was
Yeah.
very left brain, 2 pages of notes, and this is how I'm going to go from this question to this question. And I noticed that when I just start talking, all I was doing was taking my highlighter and crossing off all the topics that it just happened anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of tuning that down. I'm ratcheting down the left brain agenda of a list and just going more with the flow. I might have, I want to, like, I do 90 minutes, and the first half hour is going to be this, and the middle is going to be this, and I want to end with this, just to have some structure.
Yeah.
But I know where I want to go. I mean, I really, this is something that is part of me. It's not a belief, it's a knowing. And I really do trust the flow of the conversation and the universe. The thing that I'm really focusing on, like with Jill Bolte Taylor and Bruce Lipton, especially those two, because they talk so much. It's like, if I go back to do some research and I listen to Jill Bolte Taylor 5 times, she says it almost verbatim every time. It's like, how she got into it and how her brain bleed. And I mean, so I need to cover that, because some people might not have heard that before. But I want to find the nuggets that nobody else has asked. I mean, I listened to an interview the other day with Jill Bolte Taylor, and I'm like, oh, well, they left a lot of meat on the bone. There's lots to talk about. I'm going to go somewhere nobody else does. So that's really my mission, is to go through, like this morning, I read a chapter in another book. I just finished another book. And then I got Joe Bolte Taylor's book, Whole Brain Living. And I just went over all of my highlighted stuff, and it brought up some, thoughts and feelings, and I make a couple notes, but that's about it. But what I'm finding is that, and I'm going to say, especially with Joe Bolte Taylor, because she comes out and says it. I saw out of the blue on Facebook a post that she did on her Joe Bolte Taylor Facebook page, which I didn't even know she had. I'd never seen it before. And all of a sudden, Facebook's algorithm says Jeff needs to see this post from Bolte Taylor. And I said, "Hi, I'm Jeff Granville, and I run Mindful Presence, and I'd love to chat." Well, like 15 minutes later, I get a message from her in Messenger that says, "I'd love to chat."
Wow.
And I'm like, whoa, my gosh, what the heck? Maybe she read the website or the story or whatever, or knew about it. I didn't know what. And so I emailed her, and we set up a date for November 1st was our first chat. And we talked for 2 hours. We video chatted. And I said, "Well, I don't know where to start. I don't know if you read some of the website." And she goes, "No, I didn't read any of it. I just wanted to hear it from you." And I said, "Well, of all the people approaching you for talking, like, I know people that have tried to get her for a year and couldn't get in line for an interview. And here she responded to me in 20 minutes. And I said, "If you didn't read and know the story, what drew you?" She goes, "The divinity in me felt the divinity in you." And that was it. She responded, and she was just amazing. It's going to be a lifelong friendship. She invited me to come join her, and I invited her to come join me for some downtime. And it's like she's going to do everything in her power to support what we're doing. And she's like, I said, "Well, first thing you can do is you can come on my podcast." And she just looked down, "When's your first date?" And so the thing that I'm really experiencing through this is that the story speaks for itself. I just have to tell the story. Like Lonnie said, do the work, tell the story, do the work, tell the story, right? So if I just do that, the McCoy's story and his journey and what we did from that speaks for itself, and people get it. Anybody like Joe Bolte Taylor that's been through Western medicine, and they've, now they've got a glimpse of the beyond, and what's really happening in our physiology, like Bruce Lipton and Joe Dispenza and Bruce Cryer. All these people have been through, training of Western medicine, and the reality is way outside of that box. What we have
Totally
available,
outside of it.
way outside. Totally, yeah. It's almost non-existent in the box.
It's not in the box. They totally took medicine out of the box altogether. I mean,
yeah.
I'm very grateful for those guys. I'm really heartwarmed that Jill Bolte Taylor, the divinity in her saw the divinity in you. And I'm also not surprised. Really not surprised at all.
Thank you.
I when you were talking about, how you wanted to approach your interview with her, my instinct was, if I was in that room interviewing her, I would want to know what was happening to her immediately before she had her stroke.
Yeah.
Like, what was going on? What was going on before? I'm always fascinated by the kind of prequel to the actual start of the story, because, you and I are talking about quantum alchemy here, and how we're manifesting things. What's leading up to that?
Yeah.
And how do we move with that?
Yeah, that's a really, really, really insightful question, because James McCartney's book, From Crisis to Creation, the impetus for crisis is some path we were on in our life, a separation from our soul's calling. Like Ho'oponopono says, the essence of our souls, all of our souls, is peace, joy, and love, and their natural states of being. Okay, so when childhood trauma or something in your life, if you're working a job you don't love, if you're going down this path and you feel out of touch with your soul's calling, that's the crevasse that creates crisis.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a good question. I'm going to ask her that. I will definitely ask her that. And that wasn't on my radar yet. So
Copy me in on the answer. I want to know.
yeah, well, I will
Send me a
say,
link.
I'll let her know where it came from. So
Or say, one of my audience members wants to know.
yeah. One of my dear friends and co-creator, Louisa Munson.
I'd love that, but you don't have to. You can use I'll give you that question. Have it for yourself.
Yeah, no, it's of divinity. So you were in the moment as I was speaking, and that came to
Yeah.
you. Yeah. So that was divinity helping me.
Wow.
Ask
Also,
her.
like, most people do focus on the story, don't they? They
Yeah,
focus on meat on the bones, not
right,
how that meat got there.
right. Really good point.
I like to dig. I've got a bit of Scorpio in me, you see.
You
Like,
do. You do. Yeah. See, that's the important part about what we do
mm,
is, you know, we're not just divinity. We are also humans. And
mm,
like my daughter Heidi said, we're human beings. Sometimes we're more human and sometimes we're more being, and
yeah.
that's like the wave or particle. And what's being
Mhm.
triggered, your human or your being, and I think the real power, and this is the message from Joe Bolte Taylor's book, Whole Brain Living,
Mm,
is you want integration. She talks about the 4 characters of the brain and how to have a brain huddle to bring them together, because you don't want to push out your left brain.
no.
You don't want to be all divinity and can't reach the shower nozzle to, turn on the shower. You have to be fully integrated.
Yeah,
So
you're right.
that's where the most exciting part of my interview with her is what she has taught me about the physiology of our divinity,
Mm,
because we have to be coherent vertically and we have to be laterally integrated to be divine. We have to be. That's the only way. You can't be all right brain
yeah.
and walk on the earth as divinity. You
Mm,
have to be in alignment all the time and at zero. And that has to be your sanctuary bubble that you take with you everywhere you go. And that's when the magic happens. That's when you really respond correctly instead of react, where you wait for this person that, you know, you avoided an accident. Or, I mean, that's how we create this space to flourish on earth, as to be integrated, not, like I said, not kick out the left brain.
mm,
There might be times where you meditate and you go to this place that's all divine. That's great, but we can't leave the house like that. We can't get in the car and start it with
yeah.
all right brain. You wouldn't know what key to pick.
You're so right. When I'm pregnant, I spend a lot of my time in this place of divinity, and throughout each pregnancy, I've just stopped driving because I know I can't do it. I can't focus on anything.
Perfect.
I burn
Perfectly.
toast. I do all sorts of accidents. So it's like,
Right.
I'm pregnant. No driving.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right.
Yep. And you took it from a potential belief right into knowing that you better not drive, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Because you know what the outcome would be. But you're
Mm,
accepting what truly is. You're not pushing out the divinity of being pregnant. That's a beautiful thing. But you're
yeah.
being fully integrated to accept,
Mm,
okay, with that state, I better give up some of the things that my left brain
mm,
does,
mm.
right? So you're fully accepting what is.
Well, I
Yeah.
did in that respect, but I also chugged down lots of black coffee during my pregnancy to kind of ground me. I felt like I was going to float away half the time.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a
Yeah.
whole other story. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on Feel Good Conversations once again, Jeff. I am so in gratitude. I've loved this conversation so much. May I make one more request of you, and that is,
Absolutely.
would you please lead us into your coherence breathing just to end it?
I'd be
That
happy to. I'd be happy to. Should we start with reset?
Yeah, let's
You
do.
said it's one of your
So,
favorites. Is it still?
yeah, I think for anyone that yeah, and just before we do this, for anyone that's listening right now, I'm going to be posting links to every one of our previous shows that we've done, because obviously Jeff spoken about McCoy and McCoy's story, and that was our very, very first interview. And the whole story is laid out there for you. I think we were both crying through that one. It was a very emotional, first sort of video between us. And then we've done other ones, and Jeff has taken us through the actual coherence breathing step by step. And so if you enjoy this breathing, then go back to those videos. There's a 20-minute standalone one that you could just look at and do to help you get to zero. But anyway, take it away, Jeff. I'm in your hands.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to go through the first 3 breathing exercises. The first one is the reset breathing, where we're going to take 4-second sharp, fast nasal inhale. And then we're going to have a 8-second oral exhale with puckered lips and the O sound for 8 seconds. We're going to do that once. Then we're going to go to the controlled breathing, which is gently and smoothly 5-second nasal inhale with a gentle, smooth 6-second ah on the exhale. Okay. And then we're going to find our pulse. So a good way to start is for everybody to find their pulse in their body where they're going to locate it after the breathing so they don't have to search for it. And I've actually had a number of people who've never felt their heartbeat because of autonomic tension. And I say, imagine that you can. Like if you can't feel it right now, I just want you to imagine that you'll be able to when we get to it. Because we're going to go from the reset to the controlled where we count seconds, and then the coherence breathing, we find our heartbeat and we count 5 heartbeats in and 6 heartbeats out. And that's how we verify coherence, because you'll notice that your heartbeat speeds up when you breathe in and it slows down when you breathe out. So that's our goal. And even if you don't get to that today, imagine if you could, and you'll get to it next time. Okay. So we're going to start out with the reset breathing. So I want everybody to sit comfortably with their feet grounded and kind of wiggle yourself into space. Okay. Now we're going to take our reset breathing, 4 seconds, sharp nasal inhale. Ready? Go. 2, 3, 4. Oral exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Gentle in the nose. 2, 3, 4, 5. Oral exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nasal inhale. Oral exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Gentle nasal in. 2, 3, 4, 5. Oral exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Gentle in the nose. 3, 4, 5. Oral exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One more time. Gentle nasal in. 3, 4, 5. Oral exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Keep breathing. Find your pulse. Nasal inhale for 5 heartbeats and oral exhale for 6 heartbeats. Okay, keep going. And on the oral exhale, really stair step it down on 4, 5, 6. And breathe in. Feel it speed up. Oral exhale. Really slow down. 4, 5, 6. Okay, very good. That was 5 cycles. And the goal would be, thank you. The goal would be to feel your heartbeat and to feel it speed up and slow down. And then that carries us into the fourth, which is a stir breathing, which you can watch on video. But
Absolutely.
everybody should be able to feel their own pulse and feel it speed up and slow down, which is the biofeedback of homeostasis. And that brings you to zero. You've just used your conscious intent and controlled breathing to entrain your heartbeat. And then you've switched from counting seconds to counting heartbeats. The heart's the conductor of the orchestra, and now you're following your heart.
Boom. That's how it feels, like a big old heart opening. Thank you so much. Please come again another time.
My pleasure. Give my love to Carl and the kids, please.
Yeah, and love to you and yours.
Oh, always. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Our interview was just so beautiful, and this little fella here just couldn't wait to see me. So he was just crying outside the door, going, "Mommy, I need you." But anyway, I loved that with Jeff. That was just so good. I hope you enjoyed it too. Please do check out his new podcast. I'll put links in below. And if you have enjoyed this, please do make sure you subscribe, and also click on the notification bell. So next time I have a supersonic interview with someone just like Jeff, or even Jeff himself in the future, you'll get some kind of notification. But thank you so much for watching today. I absolutely love that you've joined us today. If you've enjoyed it, please do share and comment, and let me know if there's somebody else you want me to interview, because I just absolutely love these feel-good conversations, and I hope you do too. Anyway, lots and lots of love to you wherever you are in the world. Bye for now.